All right, let's jump back into 1920s Shanghai with Our Violent Ends.
You know, picking up where we left off with those unresolved textual tension reviewers, it's like, well...
They had a tough time with the first book, right? So
yeah, these violent delights left them kind of...
lukewarm.
Yeah, you could say that.
So now
they're going into the sequel.
And we're along for the ride.
Like, will this one, will it, tie up loose ends? Or is it just going to be more of the same?
Exactly. More of the same frustration. So we're going to unravel their critique and see what happens.
I mean, it's fascinating, right? They're starting Our Violent Ends already kind of skeptical.
It's like, imagine going back to a restaurant that gave you food poisoning.
Ooh, yeah.
You're a little hesitant, right?
You're going to be looking at the menu with a very suspicious eye.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the vibe I get.
So their experience with these violent delights is really setting the stage for how they're going to approach one.
Yeah, especially with the main character, Juliette Kai.
Juliette?
They really struggled with her. I mean, the book keeps telling us she's brilliant, a mastermind, but...
her actions, well...
yeah.
Like, she's impulsive,
yeah,
makes these rash decisions.
Exactly. It's that whole show don't tell thing, right?
Exactly.
Which writers are always told to do. But
easier said than done.
Yeah. So that tension between who Juliette is supposed to be and who she actually is on the page, that continues into this sequel.
And you see it right away.
Really?
The book opens with Juliette and her cousin Kathleen at a movie premiere.
Okay, so a glamorous start.
Seems like it, right. But of course, things take...
There's always a but.
Right. There's this underlying tension in Shanghai.
Oh, yeah. Remind me, what's going on at this point?
Well, you still have the Scarlet Gang and the White Flowers at each other's throats.
Right.
And there's this constant sense of unease, like something's about to blow.
Okay, so movie premiere, tension in the air. What happened?
Juliette spots someone suspicious.
Like a spy.
Yeah, maybe tailing this prominent merchant. And boom, her instinct is to pursue.
Wait, she just leaves Kathleen at a premiere?
Yep, without a word.
Classic Juliette.
And guess who she ends up chasing?
Let me guess.
Roma.
Bingo.
Of course it's Roma.
You can practically hear the reviewers groaning.
But why did this scene bother them so much?
Okay, so on one hand, it's predictable.
Right. It's a romance novel. They got to have their drama.
Exactly. But it's more than that.
Okay.
It's Juliette's impulsiveness again. She just runs off, puts herself in danger, doesn't even think about the merchant's safety.
Yeah, so she's risking a potential ally just to chase after
her ex, who also happens to be the leader of a rival gang.
Yeah, not the smartest move.
And it just reinforces that whole telling versus showing problem.
Yeah, she's supposed to be the strategic genius, but...
her actions scream, well, something else.
It's like, learn from your mistakes, Juliette.
Right, so they're already frustrated, and we're just in the opening scene.
This isn't looking good.
And speaking of not looking good, let's talk about Roma.
Ooh, what's he up to? Well, the reviewers noticed a change in him, like he's trying to present a more refined image.
Really?
Yeah, he's even wearing lighter clothes, trying to shed that brooding bad boy persona.
Is it working?
Not really.
I see.
He's still very much entangled in that world of violence.
So he's trapped between who he wants to be and who he feels obligated.
Exactly, and it comes out in some pretty disturbing ways.
Like how?
Well, there's the scene... and it's pretty intense, where he nearly strangles Juliette.
Whoa, hold on. He strangles her.
In a moment of rage, yeah.
That's not good.
No, not good at all.
And the reviewers were understandably disturbed by it.
Yeah, it's not exactly romantic, is it?
No, it's actually pretty toxic.
And I mean, what kind of message does that send?
Especially to younger readers who might not, see the red flags.
Right, because it's all wrapped up in this epic love story pack.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have Juliette making questionable choices, Roma being kind of scary.
And then there's Benedict.
Oh, Benedict, Roma's cousin, right?
Yep, the enigmatic one. The reviewers weren't big fans of him in the first book, were they?
Not really, and it seems like Our Violent Ends didn't change their mind.
So what's he doing now?
Well, they found his actions even more erratic, his motivations even murkier.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, there's this sudden romantic interest in Marshall.
Really? Out of nowhere?
Pretty much.
Seems...
yeah, forced.
Yeah, like the author was trying to, I don't know.
Check a box.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, let's add a queer subplot, but without any real depth or development.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is. It feels like a missed opportunity.
Because you could explore this complex relationship, add layers to both characters, but...
it just falls flat.
So Benedict's still a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
Pretty much.
So Juliette's impulsive, Roma's got anger issues, Benedict, where do we go from here?
Well, now things are going to get really interesting because we're going to dive into the reviewers' reactions to the final act of Our Violent Ends. And trust me, it's a wild ride.
Ooh, okay, I am buckled up and ready for this wild ride. Let's go.
Great. because it's about to get intense.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back. All right, so we're really getting into the thick of it now with our violent ends and those unresolved textual tension reviewers.
Yeah, it's like they're on this quest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hoping, maybe even praying, that the sequel will, I don't know,
redeem the first book.
Yeah, or at least address some of the issues they had.
Right, they're waiting for that aha moment where everything clicks.
And all those loose ends are tied up.
Exactly. So let's see if that happens as we move into the final act of our violent ends.
Okay, hit me with it. What goes down?
Well, remember that whole monster attack situation?
Oh, yeah, and the mysterious blackmailer behind it all?
Right, well, the big reveal happened.
Oh, I love reveals. Lay it on me.
It's Rosalind.
Rosalind. Wait, Juliet's aunt?
Yep, the cabaret dancer.
No way. I did not see that coming.
The reviewers were totally blindsided, too.
So she's the mastermind, but why? What's her motivation?
That's where things get a little fuzzy.
Fuzzy how?
Well, the reviewers felt like the book, while delivering a shocking twist, didn't really explain why Rosalind did what she did.
Okay, so it's a gotcha moment, but without any real substance.
Exactly. It's like, okay, but WHY?
It's a bit of a letdown, isn't it? Like you set up this intricate puzzle, and then some pieces are just missing.
It highlights the importance of not just throwing in twists, but making sure they make sense for the character.
Right, and for the story as a whole.
So, big reveal, but maybe not the most satisfying one.
And what about the climax? You mentioned earlier it gets pretty intense.
Buckle up, because Juliet makes the ultimate sacrifice.
Ultimate sacrifice. You mean she dies?
She gives her life to save Roma and Shanghai.
Wow, that's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's a pretty emotional.
So what leads to this sacrifice? What happens?
Well, remember how Juliet found out the monster infection was spreading?
Uh-huh.
She also learns there's a vaccine.
Okay, that's good, right?
But there's only enough for one person.
Oh, no.
And Juliet, in this incredibly selfless act, makes sure Roma gets it.
So she condemns herself.
Yeah, she sacrifices herself to save him and the city.
That's wow. I mean, talk about a tragic ending.
It's definitely bittersweet.
So what did the reviewers think about all of it? I'm guessing they had mixed feelings.
They did. On one hand, they were really moved by Juliet's selflessness.
Right, I can see that.
It's a powerful testament to her love for Roma and her dedication to Shanghai.
But what of the other hand? What didn't they like?
They felt like killing off Juliet, a character with so much potential, was a bit of a waste.
A waste?
They argued that her death, while heroic, didn't really serve the narrative.
It's like all this build-up, all this complexity, and then she's just gone.
And it brings up that question of authorial choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they really serve the story, or are they just for shock value?
So you're saying the reviewers felt like Juliet's sacrifice, while emotional, didn't really resonate with the bigger picture.
Yeah, they acknowledged the emotional impact, but questioned its purpose in the grand.
You know, this reminds me of what we were talking about earlier. Unresolved textual tension.
It's almost like this ending, while providing a resolution in a sense, introduced even more unresolved tension.
Because now we're left wondering what was the point of it all.
Right, and that's really at the heart of what the Unresolved Textual Tension podcast is all about.
It's not just about finding out who did it or what happened. It's about understanding the why.
And our violent ends, despite its dramatic climax, seems to leave a lot of those whys unanswered.
So Rosalind's motivations, Juliet's sacrifice, even that hint of supernatural stuff, it's all just kind of
left hanging.
It's like a meal that leaves you feeling unsatisfied.
You know, all the ingredients were there, but something's missing.
So what's the takeaway here? What are the reviewers ultimately saying about our violent ends?
I think they're saying that even with a great premise and interesting characters, a story can fall short if the author doesn't pay attention to
the motivations, the resolutions, all those things that make a story truly satisfying.
Exactly, and that's what creates that unresolved textual tension.
A feeling that something's not quite right, even if you can't put your finger on it. So we've covered a lot of ground with our violent ends, Juliet, Rosalind, even Roma's anger management issue.
Right, but you know, there's one thing the reviewers haven't explicitly talked about, and it's kind of a biggie when it comes to unresolved textual tension.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. What is it?
Well, it's the whole historical and political backdrop of the story.
Right. They weren't thrilled with how that played out in the first book, and it sounds like the sequel didn't really improve things.
Yeah, these violent delights set the stage, right? 1920s, Shanghai, gang wars, foreign powers, all that jazz.
Yeah, it was almost like the city itself was a character.
Exactly. There was this palpable tension, this feeling that anything could happen.
But you're saying that didn't really translate into our violent ends?
Not as effectively as it could have.
So what went wrong?
It's like All those elements are still there. The Scarlet Gang, the White Flowers, the Nationalist Army looming in the background, but they just feel like set dressing.
Instead of being woven into the story.
Exactly. They're not driving the narrative. They're just kind of there.
So it creates this disconnect for the reader.
We're told Shanghai's on the brink of chaos, but we don't really feel it.
It's like all tell, no show.
Right, and that's where that unresolved textual tension comes in.
Because we're left wondering, what if? What if the author had really explored the impact of those historical and political forces on the character?
What if their choices, their motivations, were directly tied to the turmoil happening around them?
You feel like a missed opportunity.
A huge one.
Because you could have this really immersive story where the setting isn't just a backdrop, it's a force shaping the character's destiny.
And that's what's so fascinating about unresolved textual tension, right? It's not about bashing the book.
It's about analyzing it, understanding why it works or doesn't work.
And Our Violent Ends, for all its strength, leaves a lot of questions unanswered.
It makes you think, what could have been?
If those different choices were made, if those threads were explored further.
So, for our listeners out there, I guess the takeaway is, don't be afraid to ask.
Don't settle for a story that leaves you feeling dissatisfied.
Embrace that unresolved textual tension. Use it to analyze, to think critically.
Because sometimes the most thought-provoking stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
And that's where the real conversation begins. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world of storytelling.
We'll be right here with you, ready to unpack it all.